Hello everyone and welcome to Canteen Cup. My name is Scott and you are looking at 20 tons of number 57 gravel. All right, I just got it delivered and it's part of my ongoing driveway project. And so there it is. It's 20 tons. That's about $600 worth of gravel. It's not cheap anymore, but that's what we need. As you can see, we are putting gravel up along the front of the house. And then also over here, we are starting to head back along the wood line, the edge of the woods there. Eventually what's going to happen is this will circle, the gravel will circle all the way behind the house and then back up the other side. And well, my wife said she always wanted a circular driveway, and this is the best I can do for her. We can't have one in front of the house because of the way the property sits, but at least with this way, once I start graveling back here, as you can see, our propane tank is there, and so I'll have gravel down so that when they come deliver more propane, won't have a problem getting to the back of my property. When it rains, this place does get a little bit slick, which is why I started on this project to begin with. And we'll take a little walk down here. Nice and bright out today. I think it's going to be up in the lower 70s. Feels almost warm, but I'll take it. It's still better than that 90-something degree heat we had. Okay, so from here, we're going to continue to take the gravel back. And as you can see, I've got some gravel over here in front of my shed. That's because it gets muddy right there when I'm getting in and out. This mud gets all over the place. And then we'll put some gravel out here also to our other shed. And then I figure right about here somewhere, I'm going to create a large work area so we can wash cars on gravel, not on mud. It'll make it a little easier. And you probably can't see it, but the ground slopes downhill from here, so I'll have good drainage when we do wash our cars. And so that's the plan. And then we'll probably need to buy more gravel at that point. And we'll continue to take it back around that edge line. And so we'll have that circular drive. So, all right, well, there's a few more things I want to talk about. And what I'll do is I'll switch the view around so you can see my pretty face, and I'll be back in just a minute. All right, everybody, I'm back and glad to be here. Taking a look in the back of some of my shed and my little trailer that I tote various things around on. I got a little bit of shade here. That sun was pretty bright today. It's kind of nice. Yesterday was kind of cloudy and overcast, so it's kind of nice to see some sun. So I want to talk about a couple of things, and one of it is consumerism in the prepper world, where people are telling you that you have to have things or you're going to die. And I think for some of that it's true, but I think for a lot of it it's not. And that's because we don't think and how to use our resources properly, so we tend to overbuy to try to compensate for our lack of knowledge. And I've been going through this, and every now and again, I'd say every now and again, I fall for this, and today I was looking at my well, I call it my flea bag. I don't have a bug out bag because, in reality, I don't plan on bugging out. And so I am at my bug out location. And so, um, as we used to say in the Army, you'll have to put a bomb under my butt to get me to move from where I am right now. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. It's just that, my preparations for the most part are geared to stay here on my property. And that's really is the plan. And so, that being said, I don't have a bug out bag. What I do have is a flea bag, and that's FLEE. It is I think it's a homonym of flea, FLEA, and that's why I use it as a flea bag. A flea bag is an old term like for an old dog or an old horse, something that's loaded with fleas. But I call it my flea bag, as in, I have to grab what I can and flee. In other words, run for my life. And that might be the only situation where I would need a bag of sorts. If I was to bug out, and everybody should have a plan. We have a PACE. It's an Army acronym. It stands for Primary, Alternate, Contingency, and Emergency Plans. And it was originally developed for communications plans, but it's kind of used almost universally now. And so, my primary plan, yes, my primary plan is to stay put. My alternate plan might be to, temporarily leave, in which case I have things in tubs in my house that I work out of day to day. I try not to have stuff just sitting there doing nothing. I think that's where we get in a lot of trouble, and maybe I'll talk about that in a minute. But if I can make an orderly evacuation, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to load up my truck with the stuff that I have pre-positioned or pre-planned, plus other things, and then we will leave. And so that is my alternate plan. And again, it's leaving in my truck. With the truck, I try to keep a half a tank of gas in my truck. And at a half a tank of gas, I can go typically at least 250 miles. Depending on how I drive, on a full tank of gas, I can get almost 500 miles out of my gas tank. I've got a 26-gallon gas tank in my truck. And so, so that is really my alternate plan. My primary is to stay. My alternate is to load my truck up, and this is where I may have hours, if not days, to leave. My contingency plan is probably grabbing my flea bag, which I keep with me. I keep it in my truck when I leave the local area. It's usually never far from me, and it's always packed because I keep my work tools in there also. And so in order for me to go to work, I bring the bag with me. So I always have it with me. And that is my contingency plan. In other words, if the zombies are coming down my driveway and they're going to, entering my house or breaking into my house is imminent, I'm going out the back door as they're coming in the front door, so to speak. In other words, I have to run for my life. My family and I, we have to run for our lives. So we grab our flea bags and then we run off into the woods, and we're basically on foot. In general, I don't see a lot of that in the world today where people are fleeing, unless it's a weather event. If those of you live in an area that's prone to severe weather events, I don't count hurricanes, because hurricanes, you have days notice to leave. And most people just choose to wait to the last minute. And then the interstates heading away from the hurricane turn into parking lots. I don't, I think the closest thing I can come to that would be in Atlanta, Georgia in 2014. We had a major snow event that dumped inches of snow in a short period of time, and everybody tried to get home. And again, it turned the interstates into a parking lot, and it was a mess. That would be maybe where you would go into your contingency and go into your flea bag, so to speak. And then, of course, the emergency is just getting out with whatever you have on you. That's emergency. That's, hopefully you'll have at least a knife and maybe a gun on you, your wallet, things like that. So, but that's the emergency. But now I want to get back to my flea bag. I just went through my flea bag again and weeded out a bunch of stuff. I don't need it, I'm going to recommend a reality TV series, which I kind of like, which gives me a lot of ideas. And it kind of helps keep me grounded in what my capabilities are and the things I can do. Now, mind you, I've been in this business for a long time, so to speak, and I have knowledge, I have skills. But years ago, I think 10, 15 years ago, a guy named Les Stroud put out a series of TV shows called Survivor Man, where he would go into the wild with next to nothing, and he would survive for a week on his own. And he was his own cameraman, so he would take the pictures, carry the cameras, and then try to live. And he did it, and the things he did, the stuff he did was pretty reasonable. And so if you have those skills, you don't need a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to say go out in the woods with nothing, but let your training be your guide on what you need. And so I went through and cleaned out all the stuff. It's like, I knew at the time it was probably an impulse buy. I was in a sporting goods store, saw something cool and neat, and I grabbed it, threw it in the bag. Oh, I'll just stick it in my bag. And then one day I wake up, and say, my bag has gotten awful heavy. And then it's time to clean it out, get rid of stuff, and get the weight back down again. So a lot of stuff in the woods, in the wild, in urban, suburban areas can be used to make your shelter, can be used to start fires, can be used, to hold water and whatever. You can even make string if you're so inclined. I've done it. It's a very tedious and time-consuming process. And so really what I boil down to is that there are basically 3 things that are very difficult to recreate in a survival situation. And these are the 3 things you should build your kit around. And one is a knife, something to cut. If you can find some obsidian rock or some flint or tree, you can. But where I live, we're mostly granite. So, and then you have to have the skills in order to craft that knife. And then those knives aren't that durable once you get them. Yeah, they're razor sharp, but you use the rock to chip them doesn't mean you can't chip the edge right off them. So, I recommend that everybody carry a knife. I'm not even going to type of knives. Right now, I'm carrying a pocket knife. I carry I just bought myself a little jackknife I fancied, and that's what I carry. And sometimes I carry a lock blade, but for most of my life, I have depended on what they call a slip joint or a regular pocket knife, and I'm still here today. But it is important that you have the means to cut. So carry a knife with you, something that cuts. In my kit, I went through it and I put a multi-tool in there. So now I have a knife, I have a saw, I have some screwdrivers. Mine has a little chisel. It's got a pair of pliers. I think in today's world, with all the other stuff we have, a pair of pliers is probably a good idea in a survival kit. So, whatever your fancy, but have a cutting instrument with you, because you can't. It's very hard to replicate that in the wild. The second thing I recommend that you carry with you is a cup or pot. A cup or pot is very hard to replicate in the wild. Yeah, you can make a Cusco, whatever it is, out of wood, but you got to find the right piece of wood. You got to have a way to separate the wood from the tree. And then you got to carve on it or burn it out or whatever. And again, that takes a lot of time. So get you a cup. They make them out of titanium. They make them out of stainless steel. Somewhere 500 to 750 milliliters to a liter. It's fine. Something you can boil water with, something you can make a stew with if you manage to have some food with you. But a cup is very important. It's just not something easily replicated in the wild. For those that are into Army surplus stuff, the USGI canteen cup is a great cup. I don't use one because it's a little heavier than I want. I have a little titanium one that I stick in my bag, and so I carry that with me. But have something to be able to boil water, carry water, whatever. It's something you can't replicate. And then the third thing is string and or rope. It is very hard to make string and or rope in the wild. Yes, it can be done. It's time consuming. And if you don't do it right, it breaks. And sometimes it breaks anyhow because it's not as strong as what you can buy as far as commercial rope. And so I recommend carrying some rope with you. A lot of people like to carry parachute cord for a multitude of reasons. I've here recently kind of moved away from that, and I carry what's called a bank cord. It's treated cord, usually used in the fishing industry, but I carry some of that on a spool. I carry more of it. It's lighter weight. No, it's not 500-pound test, but over the past 40 or 50 years, I don't think I've ever had to use the 500-pound rating of parachute cord. And so this bank cord, I think I get like 38 or I don't know. It's about the same size as parachute cord, a little bit thinner, but it's lighter. I can get more on a spool, and I cut it as I need it. It's cheap enough that if I use it up, I just go buy another spool. Parachute cord's okay. I carried it for many years, but in reality, I don't think it's as important as as long as you have something to tie things off, to do a little lashing, and right along with that, learn how to lash and learn how to tie knots. Everybody should know a half a dozen or so knots that they can use to make things. They should know how to make a prusik. They should know a square knot, a bowline, a taut line hitch, a clove hitch. That's 5 right there that you can use to make things. A slip knot, 2 half hitches. Just learn a handful of knots, learn how to tie them correctly, and then use them. And keep them in your library in the back of your head. So that's really some of the stuff that's important in a kit. Now, do I have other stuff? Yeah, I do. But those are the 3 things that should be in everyone's kit. Other things I carry a first aid kit. It's an Adventure Medical Kit 0.3 in a waterproof bag. And then I add some SWAT T tourniquet bandages, and I add some compressed gauze to that and a few other things to kind of round it out a little bit so that I could treat a major injury if I had to. Typically, the way I feel about first aid kits in a survival situation is you should be able to handle, one major thing, 2 kind of medium things, and a bunch of little things. I also keep a lot of pain reliever with me because I use it, so I carry extra pain reliever. The other thing I carry is stuff for water purification. I carry some portable aqua tabs, and I carry a Sawyer mini filter. Again, it's just enough to help keep me going. I have two canteens, fold-up canteens I keep, and all that's stuffed inside the cup. And so I have that going for me. Let's see what else. I keep a repair kit, duct tape, a little bit of glue, some safety pins, some needle and thread. And then I keep a fishing kit. I got a pretty good sized fishing kit because a lot of fish around here. And also too, in my repair kit, I have some brass wire for snares and for repairs. And that's really, kind of the extent of my flea bag. I carry other things, like I carry a flash drive that has my important information on it and it's encrypted. I carry a Bitcoin wallet with me, which is encrypted, but allows me to carry some cash with me that people can't easily get to. And so that's really kind of it. Went a little long with this, but when you think about your kits, think about, do you really need it? Oh, and one thing I carry with me is I carry 2 contractor grade trash bags. That's my shelter, that's my poncho. Can use those for everything. And I carry 2 of those. And I did get myself a luxury item. I bought one of those little space blanket bivy sacks that you can kind of crawl into. Here in Georgia, it's a little wet, a little damp. And so it's nice to be able to prevent your clothes from getting wet when you're trying to lay down. And so and that thing weighs about 8 ounces, and it'll help keep me a little bit warm. It'll help keep me a little bit dry. And so anyhow, those are my thoughts, a little bit musings about survival kits. And so I want to just give you all some input, and you all take care. You all stay safe. You all stay secure. We'll see you.